Hello all. This morning I got up at about 10 past 4 in the morning. I say got up, that's when the alarm clock went off. I got up at 10 past 4 to watch Canelo Alvarez versus Billy Joe Saunders, and that's what I'm going to be talking about right now. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and the most important thing, make sure you comment. I'd love to know what you all thought about the fight. It was an interesting one. It was actually better than what I thought it was probably going to be. I had horrible premonitions and thoughts that it was going to be a bit of a stinker. I thought that was very possible because to win the fight for Billy Joe Saunders, I thought he was going to have to do a lot of movement, a lot of jabbing, of course, not get involved with Canelo. Obviously, there was a lot of drama over the ring. During last week, I put out a video giving a reaction to the interviews done by Billy Joe Saunders' father, who was claiming that the fight was off and they were all going to go home if the ring wasn't the correct size. And a lot of people said it was mind games. And a lot of people said it was Canelo trying to dictate everything and blah, 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 blah. You all know. I'm sure you are all up to date watching and taking in the information that was going around the internet on that subject. It got resolved. I said it would get resolved. It did. And it got resolved pretty much in Billy Joe Saunders' favour. On fight night, or fight morning, depending where in the world you were watching it, my initial reaction when seeing the ring was, that's a big ring. I thought the ring looked massive. And it ties in with, as well, a lot of people were claiming that Billy Joe Saunders had got under Canelo's skin, had riled him up, had made him angry. I didn't see that in any of the build-up. When I saw Canelo's reaction to Billy Joe Saunders and his sort of clowning and his antics and all that sort of thing, and talking about Mexican beef and all this sort of thing, when I looked at Canelo, I saw a man that held Billy Joe Saunders in contempt. He just, I think when he looked at Billy Joe Saunders, he saw someone who was beneath him, that was punching up to try and get attention. And that carried over to the ring, to be honest, on fight night. So Billy Joe Saunders got his big ring. According to Eddie Hearn, when asked, he went over to Canelo and said, look, they want a 22-foot ring or whatever it was. Canelo said, yeah, no problem. Let him have it. Doesn't matter. Billy Joe Saunders did not get to him build up at all. Now, Billy Joe Saunders making his way to the ring, my own personal take on that, my own personal opinion on that was, I thought he looked like a man under a lot of stress and a lot of pressure that was trying to look calm, that was trying to look like he was having fun and dancing to the music and everything like that. He looked very stiff on that ring walk. It kind of reminded me of the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz. He was just very stiff in his legs and arms, and I did wonder, has the occasion got to him here? A little bit. 70,000 people. That arena, stadium, whatever you want to call it, where the fight was held in Texas, looked incredible. And this was the first time I'd ever watched a fight on DAZN, and I have to say I'm very impressed with the platform. You know, I just reached over, grabbed my phone. I was thinking, shall I watch it on the TV? Whatever, I just grabbed my phone, watched it, high definition, looked great, no dropouts, no lags, nothing. So I was really impressed with DAZN. I think that is the future of sport, really is. But that's a conversation for another day. So Canelo comes out and it's just a party. We've got I don't know, his mariachi band, is that the right phrase for it? We had traditional Mexican dancers, singers, and Canelo got the heroes the heroes welcome. It's Cinco de Mayo weekend, and it was just a massive party. And he looked calm. He looked cold as ice, going to the ring. Really did. So the fight then. First bell rings. Billy Joe Saunders, to be honest, he didn't freeze. He got out there and he started working the jab straight away and started moving. And I do think he used the ring well. Honestly, I do. I thought he moved around and was evasive. And had the ring been smaller, I think the fight would have finished probably sooner. I think Billy did use his movement. He used his attributes as best he can. But Alvarez, honestly, I think he's the most complete fighter I've ever seen. I'd put him in the bracket of a pressure fighter because even when he's defending, he's moving forward. And that's the thing that I love about him, is he holds his feet. If the opponent comes at him, he holds his feet. He might look to step to the side. He'll look to use head movement. He'll look to use hand defenses. But he won't. He'll try not to take a back step. And that constant pressure wears down. It wears down. It's called old manning. It's how you old man someone. And whilst Billy got a nice start in the opening round, you could give him the opener. What got me though was Canelo was using a lead left hook to the body. Who the hell does that? A lead left hook to the body. A lead left hook to the head is kind of a little bit frowned upon because it's a bit risky and a bit wild. And if you miss, you can put yourself into a lot of trouble. But a left hook to the body as a leading shot, you're so open. It's a risky one. But Canelo's just doing it like it's nothing. And he was going after the body straight away. Really was. And he was looking for big, vicious shots to the body. As the fight went on, Billy Joe Saunders had his moments. He had his success. You could, he won a few rounds in there. You could definitely say that. But this fight reminded me a hell of a lot of Usyk and Bellew. Bellew thought he was winning that fight against Usyk. Bellew thought he was doing really, really well. And, a lot of people scored it that way and were like, oh, Bellew did great against Usyk, And I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that will say, Billy Joe Saunders was doing fantastic against Canelo. He was making him think and he was landing punches. That's not strictly untrue. He was making Canelo think. I think he asked questions and gave Canelo a very awkward style to try and wrap his head round. But when we talk about mind games and a psychological battle in the build-up to the fight, the ultimate mind game and a psychological battle happens in the ring. And I think the most soul-destroying thing that you can do to someone in the ring is let them believe they're winning. In the case of both Bellew Usyk, and obviously last night Billy Joe Saunders, they believed they were having success. They could see their hopes and dreams of going down in history, of causing a massive upset and taking a huge scalp and winning all the belts and the plaudits and all that sort of thing. There will be moments in that fight where Billy Joe Saunders thought he was going to do it. Thought he was getting the better of Canelo. And it was right up to the point. Round 7 was probably Billy Joe Saunders' best round. The round before he got stopped was probably his best round. Where Canelo looked a little bit confused and a little bit disorganised and a little bit that he didn't have the answers to all the questions. And at the end of that round, Billy Joe's confidence must have been the highest it had been in the whole fight. And then he comes out for round 8. Confidence is high. Maybe I've got a chance of winning this. Maybe he's getting tired and going down. Even Carl Froch in the commentary said Canelo looks, his feet look like they've slowed down. He's planting his feet and he's looking for those big shots and he's slowing down a little bit. That was Carl Froch. It was his opinion. And it's worth listening to the opinion of an ex-professional boxer who boxed at the very highest level. And then, just when Billy Joe, just the carrot's dangling, that maybe he has a chance here, bang, monster uppercut. Canelo just does a layback, moves out the way of a swinging right hook, a swinging shot, a bit desperate shot from Billy Saunders, and Canelo lifts up, short little uppercut straight into his arm, and that was it. Literally, as soon as that shot landed and the boxers came apart from that sequence, Canelo then raised his hands and started playing up to the crowd. And it was, I'll tell you what you don't see that often. That was a hell of a moment in the sport. Canelo lands that shot, and it was a beautiful shot. It was a shot from the depths of hell. And he knew as soon as his glove touched Billy Joe Saunders' face, he knew that was it. And he just raises his hands and eggs on the crowd, 70,000 people all cheering him on. Oh, it's incredible. Horrible to be on the wrong end of that. Horrible to be in Billy Joe Saunders' shoes. You're in with Canelo. You've just got hit with this monster punch that's seriously damaged your face. And straight away, his vision will have been all over the place. He'll have been in a lot of pain. His brain will have been scrambled a little bit. And you've got 70,000 people baying for blood. And you've got this monster in front of you who is now just your daddy. Pretty much. And that was it. That was it. Now, I didn't expect Billy Joe Saunders to retire on his stool. I expected him to come out in the next round. Really did. So I was surprised when the corner pulled him out. And it looks like it was Mark Tibbs, who is a hell of a trainer. Hell of a coach. I rate him very, very highly as a coach. Very highly. Now, that was it. Billy Joe Saunders could not box on. He couldn't. If he'd have come out for the next round, he couldn't see properly. Canelo is now in the ascendancy. He wants that knockout. 70,000 people want that knockout. He is one of the best, if not the best fighter on the planet at the moment. And has monster punch power. If Billy Joe Saunders had gone out for that next round, it could have ended really badly. I mean, really badly. So, if it was the corner's decision to not let him box on, that was the correct decision. If it was Billy Joe Saunders' own decision to not box on, it was the correct decision. It was the correct decision. He wasn't going to win that fight. Look at the scorecards. He wasn't. If he boxed on, he'd have got knocked out. So then we go into the debate of, oh, well, he should have gone out on his shield. He should have just gone out and got knocked out. Well, it's okay for you to say that sitting from your comfortable armchair, that you've never risked your health for anything, for any reason. Now, I don't call boxers Twitters. I don't call boxers quitters. We've had this conversation on the live chats on Pep Talk UK. Big shout out to Pep Talk UK. Pro Bees is working magic over there. Absolute magic over at Pep Talk. The live chats, the live coverage, the live commentaries. Make sure you subscribe to Pep Talk UK. On that platform, many times, we've talked about Daniel Dubois. We've talked about Kell Brook. I don't like calling boxers quitters because they're doing something that us regular human beings could not even fathom. That we'll never be in those situations or positions. So casting judgment on it is not something that I like to do. But I find there is an element of karma here. There is an element of karma. Because I know that Billy Joe Saunders has made quite public comments about boxers quitting. We've heard him talk about being a fighting man and, oh, you have to kill me in the ring, I'll never quit, and all this sort of thing. So, while I'm not going to call him a quitter, I don't feel the need to necessarily defend him. If other people want to call Billy Joe Saunders quitters, well, look, you're entitled to a quitter. You're entitled to your opinion. You're totally entitled to your opinion. And the thing is, any other boxer that was in Billy Joe Saunders' position last night, if any other boxer had retired on their stool in the same way Billy Joe Saunders did last night, Billy Joe Saunders would have been all over social media calling that person a quitter. If Billy Joe Saunders was watching himself, he would be saying, you quit on your stool. Now, talking of boxers watching Billy Joe Saunders, Chris Eubank Jr., I don't know if any of you have seen this. You can see it over on Twitter. Chris Eubank Jr., there was a video of him watching the fight with friends. Now, it's bizarre. This chair that he's sitting in, he's lying back in this chair, like much further back than this thing will go. And some people have asked, why is Eubank Jr. in a dentist chair? It's not just looks like a dentist chair. It looks like one of those gynecology chairs where it separates the woman's legs so the doctor can get in there and have a poke around. It looks like he's about to have a gynecological exam while he's watching this fight. It's very strange. It's kind of typical Eubank fashion. It's very bizarre. But, he's watching it on TV and he starts laughing at Saunders and calling him a wet wipe or something and laughing about it. And obviously, Eubank Jr. quite publicly had some 10 grand on Canelo winning by stoppage. And the way that Eubank is celebrating this, the way he's celebrating it, you know what? Canelo beating Saunders could be Chris Eubank Jr.'s best win. When you look at who Eubank Jr. has beaten, his best win, I would argue, would probably be James DeGale, who was way past his best. So Canelo has given Chris Eubank Jr. his best win. And obviously, a lot of people, the questions are, where's Billy Joe Saunders going out after this? I'm not sure Billy Joe Saunders will box again. Because, for a start, I don't know how bad that eye injury is. It is the same eye injury that, from what I gather, Daniel Dubois had a fractured eye socket. Kell Brook had 2, we know he did. Margarito had the fractured orbital bone. And the difference between Dubois and Saunders is not necessarily a young man anymore. Compared to me, he's probably still a young man. But in the terms of the boxing game, he's not. He's had a full career and he's just had a mega fight in front of 70,000 people in Texas against the very best. Okay, he came up short. What's more to do? You know where your limit is. You know your peak. You know you've been to the top of the mountain, came up a little bit short, but that's it. And once you've been to the top of the mountain, what else is there to do? Why if you've climbed Everest, why would you then come back to England and climb Snowdon? They're not even comparable. Or even Ben Nevis or Scarfell Pike or any of these things. If you've been up Everest, you might as well pack up your hiking gear, your camping gear, your mountain climbing equipment, because nothing's ever going to beat that or rival it, because it's the pinnacle. It's the ultimate. On top of that, the injury. Being a bit older, being at the end of the career, Why would you then risk it? Because the eye is never going to be the same. Kell Brook wasn't the same after Errol Spence. Well, probably wasn't the same after Gennady Golovkin. Daniel Dubois we're yet to see. I'm hoping that Daniel Dubois can come back because he's young, and I still think he has a hell of a lot that he can do in the sport, and I hope he can. It's horrible, the thought of a young fighter not being able to pursue their dream or the thing they're good at. So I hope Daniel Dubois comes back. But I don't think Billy Joe Saunders needs to. He must have a good few million in the bank now. He must be comfortable and set up. If you just sustained a horrific eye injury like that, and you've fought the best that you could possibly fight, what's left to do? So I'm not sure Billy Joe Saunders will come back. He wasn't that active in the first place. We all know that. So the idea of him coming back for one last fight with Eubank, I don't know, maybe if the paycheck's big enough. Maybe if that video of Eubank laughing at him has pissed him off that much. Because the thing is, I still think Billy Joe Saunders is probably good enough. Even with a dodgy eye, he's probably still good enough to beat Eubank Jr. If you want my opinions on this new incarnation of Eubank Jr., there's a video on my channel covering his fight with Marcus Morrison. Please go and check it out, and you'll get all my opinions on Chris Eubank Jones Jr. I don't think he is as massively improved yet as he hopes to be. I mean, Eubank Jr. himself, that's fine laughing at Billy Joe Saunders, but would Eubank Jr. have done any better against Canelo? Eubank Jr. ain't got the feet and ain't got the movement. Canelo would have dusted him off way quicker. He hasn't got the, and if you haven't got the speed and the movement, you better sure as hell have punch power to keep this guy off you. Bearing in mind that Gennady Golovkin couldn't. His punch power, which is legendary. So Canelo, where does Canelo go next? Anywhere he wants. People talk about Caleb Plant. I can't see anyone below light heavyweight beating Canelo now. As I said earlier, I believe this guy is the complete package. This is probably the most complete boxer that I've ever seen. You know, you look at Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao had huge speed, obviously power. Foot speed was very good. Defense wasn't great. Couldn't box going backwards. Floyd Mayweather Jr., who beat Canelo, but that was a Canelo many years back, still green, still learning at a weight class he might not have been as comfortable in. That loss to Floyd Mayweather probably helped Canelo more than anything else in his career. But that being said, Floyd Mayweather Jr., excellent defense, excellent ring IQ, excellent feet, decent hand speed, but as he got older, there was less combinations. He threw a lot more singles, and let's face it, he won a hell of a lot of 12-round contests on points. He didn't have that big knockout power. He wasn't knocking people out. Certainly not at the highest level. Canelo, he seems to be able to box going forwards and backwards. His defense and head movement have improved massively since the Floyd Mayweather fight. The way he puts his punches together, his ring IQ, that he can solve the puzzle in the ring on the job. And he has that massive punch power. He can literally break your face with one punch, which he showed last night, which is incredible. This guy is the most complete boxer that I've ever seen. And it's, for us boxing fans, it's an absolute pleasure to be living through his career. It really is. So we got to enjoy him while he's there, and while we have him. There's something else I wanted to say about Canelo, and it's just dropped out of my head, and that's going to really annoy me. Talked about his punch power, talked about his... that was it. Over on Twitter yesterday, I put out some tweets, some musings on the fight, and I talked about ways it could possibly go. It's not going to load up for me. Computer's being slow while it's streaming to YouTube. But in response to a lot of Billy Joe Saunders fans who were talking about Billy being, quite a puzzle, having awkward style. Here we go. Found the thread now. Follow me on Twitter at the Benji Life. At the Benji Life on Twitter. So I put out a little tweet thread. I have a feeling that the fight could be an absolute stinker. Saunders being evasive and frustrating whilst not really landing anything significant. The fight could go the distance, and Billy will claim that he was robbed on the scorecards, and his fans and Fury fans will spend the next 5 years telling us how Billy schooled Canelo just because he got to the 12th round. Thank goodness that didn't actually happen. Billy Joe Saunders doesn't just need an out-of-this-world career-best performance. He needs Canelo to be on an off night, to be unfocused or underestimating, kind of like what happened with Klitschko and Fury. That is possible, but really, how probable? The main problem here is that Canelo is not stupid. He hasn't fallen for any of the mind games or clowning around in the build-up. He's going to be equally cold and professional in the ring. He was. As we saw with Khan, he is happy to be patient and wait for his moment. I did these tweets the day before the fight, and I like that tweet just to blow my own trumpet, just to blow smoke up my own arse, because that's what happened. Canelo was happy to wait for that right uppercut to present itself and to make that punch happen. And when it landed, that was it, game over. So, a few people have been commenting while I've been yakking on. So I just want to say a big shout out to Ahmed Sharifi. Ahmed Sharifi. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly. I'm really disappointed for Billy Joe Saunders. I had Billy Joe Saunders up, in all honesty, or a draw. It didn't really trouble Canelo like Khan, which was surprising to me. If you had him up, you had him up. But again, it's that, as I said before, it's that psychological game. I think that Canelo dangled the carrot and let Billy Joe Saunders think he was doing a lot better than he was. And also, at the same time, Billy was having to work extremely hard for his successes. We talked about this. I think I talked about this with the Craig Richards, Dimitri Bivol fight the other week. If you're going to let someone, if you're going to concede the first 5 or 6 rounds in a feeling out process, if that's your game plan, is to take the fight in the second half of the fight, you've got to make your opponent work and give you something in the first half. And Canelo made Saunders work. Saunders had really, I think he'd expended a hell of a lot of energy in the first 6 or 7 rounds to do that. And even if the injury hadn't happened, I think Saunders by round 10, another 2 or 3 rounds, I think he would have been very tired. Billy Joe didn't throw power punches. He didn't rock Canelo, didn't throw any punches with a conviction. Again, you can partly blame Billy Joe's style for that. He did throw power punches, but the problem is, again, Canelo, granite chin. He can take a punch. The guy's taking shots off Gennady Golovkin, who's the biggest puncher between probably middleweight and light heavy, something like ridiculous like that. So Billy Joe Saunders ain't going to bother him. And I think Canelo was happy to walk through the punches. He really was. Ahmed also said, I'm a big Billy Joe fan. I'm a big Billy Joe fan, but I feel sorry for Tyson Fury. He didn't think Billy Joe Saunders would go out like that. It's so obvious. This definitely questionable to see what happens. Tyson Fury, he didn't think Billy Joe Saunders would go out like that. Well, look, I mean, you got to remember Billy Joe Saunders and Tyson Fury, they talk a lot of bollocks together, as it is. They talk a whole load of dumb stuff. So, I mean, I wouldn't worry about. I'm sure Tyson Fury and Billy Joe Saunders are going to be friends, for a long time. I highly doubt Tyson Fury. But again, look, this puts him in an awkward position because Tyson Fury's talked about quitters and this sort of thing before. So it puts that relationship in an odd place. But I've no doubt that Billy Joe Saunders and Tyson Fury are not going to fall out over this or anything like that. And Billy Joe Saunders will be in Fury's corner when the Anthony Joshua fight happens, and that will happen, and it's going to get announced very, very soon. I have no doubts about that. Damien Oman, good to see you. You can't go from fighting a nobody on an undercard of a YouTube fight. That was disrespectful. No, very respectful. He then fought Martin Murray, who was past his best. He hasn't been handled properly by Matchroom. I disagree. Oh, sorry, that wasn't Damien that said that. It was Ahmed again. You can't. He's saying Billy Joe's not been. Matchroom have just given Billy Joe Saunders the biggest fight of his career. They've delivered him the biggest fight in boxing. So, no. Billy Joe Saunders has to look after Billy Joe Saunders' career, and his management, MTK Global, that's their job. Matchroom just go and get the fight that he wants to get. He says to Eddie Hearn, I want to fight Canelo, we want to fight Canelo, go and make the fight. Eddie Hearn goes and makes the fight. It's not Matchroom's job to manage him. They're there to promote him and make him money, and they have. Sorry, Damien Omer, I'll get back to you, my friend. Agreed, I think Billy Joe will retire early. Is it early retirement? I don't think it's early. I think he's had a full career, but there you go. Billy Joe will retire early, similar to Nazim, I think Nazim Havid, saying there, after his defeat to Pereira. I mean, that was slightly different because obviously Nazim Havid didn't sustain a bad injury against Pereira, but, point taken. Sorry about the audio and visuals breaking up throughout this. If it has, the internet is not working the best that it could on this, but there you go. Nathan White, I think only a drained Canelo versus a Jamal Charlo at middleweight, or a small Canelo versus Beterbiev or Bivol at light heavyweight is any chance. Yeah, I mean, people talk about Beterbiev, possibly Bivol. I think it might even be a bit early for Bivol. He's only had like 18 fights or whatever it is. But I think light heavyweight is the only place where Canelo is really going to get challenged. Pull from the chair a little bit. Damien Omen again, for me, Canelo didn't get out of second gear for most of the fight, as he didn't need to. I think there's a strong I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that. I think Canelo had other gears to go through, which, just when you think he's at third or fourth gear, there's plenty more to go. So I kind of agree with that. Ivor Biggen. Very good. Yes, Benji, great to see you on here, mate. It's been a while. Had it a draw before it got stopped. Disappointing end, but it's great to see two top-tier boxers go at it. Roll on Fury, Joshua. Completely agree. Completely agree. But as I said the other week, I'm just a boxing fan. I just want to see good boxing. And I think there was some really great boxing on display, especially from Canelo. And, I think I don't feel any different today that Canelo won. I'd feel exactly the same today if Billy Joe Saunders had won. But it is what it is. The best boxer won on the night. I'm not particularly gutted for Billy Joe Saunders. He went in there, he did his best, he came up short. I find it hard to be gutted for him after all the moaning and ring clowning about and all this sort of thing. Not to mention various antics outside the ring and things he said about other boxers quitting. I think the storyline of this fight really well, and I thought it was a fitting end. Whether we see Billy Joe Saunders box or not, who knows? But it is what it is. Anyway, I think I'm going to call it a day there. I might record this video as there has been problems with the audio and video on the internet, so I might record a more official type review of this, so watch out for that. There's going to be a lot more content coming on this channel. Just to finish off, Damien says, I still think Triple G won both those fights against Canelo. I'm inclined to agree with you, Damien. I am inclined to agree with you, and I think it's possible that a third fight will happen, and if a third fight happens, I believe Canelo will win, because Gennady Golovkin has not got any younger, very active as well, and I think by the time they box again, if they box again, I think everything will be in Canelo's favour. I think that Triple G, I think Father Time could well catch up with him, you know. So anyway, thank you all very much. Before I do that, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification, subscribe to Pep Talk UK and all that good stuff. And I'll sign now. Thank you all very much for watching. See you all. Oh my God, terrible. Thank you all very much for watching. See you all again soon. Take care. Goodbye.